European knights spent centuries perfecting the straight sword. Arab cavalry dominated battlefields with curved blades. Both civilizations had the best metal workers in the world. Both knew the other's design existed, so why didn't they just copy each other? The answer is more brutal than you think. This isn't about one sword being better, it's about two completely different problems that require two completely different solutions. European knights and Arab cavalry faced battlefields so different they might as well have been fighting on different planets. And when these two worlds collided during the Crusades, starting in 1096, the results were written in blood. Let's start in 11th century Europe. You're a Frankish knight preparing for the First Crusade. Your sword is straight, double-edged, 70 to 80 centimeters long, weighing 1 to 1.5 kilograms. Historians call this an arming sword or knightly sword. The straight blade dominated Europe for specific tactical reasons. By the 11th century, European warfare centered on armored combat. Knights wore mail hauberks, chain armor covering most of the body. By the 13th century, plate armor began appearing. Here's the critical fact. Mail armor is highly effective against cutting attacks. The interlocking rings distribute force across the armor. A sword slash will not cut through mail. It might break a ring or two with a powerful blow, but it won't penetrate to cause deep wounds, so swords couldn't defeat armor by cutting. European swordsmanship evolved around this reality. The straight blade excels at thrusting into armor gaps. When you thrust with a straight sword, all your force travels in one direct line to the point. No deflection, no wasted energy. This matters critically when you're targeting the armpit, the throat, the eye slit in a helmet, the joints between armor plates. Medieval fighting manuals reveal something that looks insane to modern eyes. Knights would grab their own blade with their bare hand, a technique called half-swording. They'd grip the blade halfway down to make precise thrusts into armor gaps. The German term is Halbschwert. This was how you actually fought in armor, and you cannot do this with a curved blade. Half-swording appears extensively in medieval treatises like the Gladiatoria manuscripts from the 15th century. The fighter grips the blade roughly halfway down with the left hand while the right hand controls the hilt. This shortens the effective length, creating much finer control for precise thrusting. Medieval sources are clear. Armored combat consisted primarily of half-sword techniques. The best option against an armored opponent was a strong thrust into less protected areas like the armpits or throat. Even better if you could throw him to the ground first, then thrust into the gaps. The straight, rigid blade could also be used for binding an opponent's weapon. You could hook it, wrestle with it, control it in close quarters. European combat was often shoulder to shoulder, shield to shield, especially in formation fighting. The sword became a tool for grappling as much as cutting. The double edge of European swords also mattered. You could deliver powerful strikes from the either side. These weren't slicing cuts designed to penetrate armor. They were impact cuts, transferring maximum force to break bones through the armor padding or batter down an opponent's guard. Now, travel east. You're a cavalryman in Saladin's army at the Battle of Hattin, 1187. Your sword is curved, single-edged. This is a saif, or perhaps a shamshir if you're Persian, or a kilij if you're Turkish. The curved sword came to the Islamic world through Central Asian influences. The earliest evidence of scimitars appears in the 9th century among soldiers in Khorasan. These weapons were brought by Turkic and Mongol warriors who used curved sabers for mounted warfare on the steppes. The curve serves a specific tactical purpose, the draw cut. When you slash with a curved blade from horseback, the curve ensures that more of the blade's edge comes into contact with the target during the same motion. It's not just impact, it's slicing. Think about cutting a tomato. If you press straight down with a knife, you crush it. But if you draw the knife through while pressing down, it slices cleanly. The curved sword does this automatically because of its geometry. The physics here are genuinely devastating. A cavalryman moving at full gallop, maybe 20 miles per hour, swinging a curved blade creates a cut where the speed and the curve combine. Historical sources from both Christian and Muslim chroniclers describe wounds that cut clean through to bone. Against unarmored or lightly armored opponents, this wasn't exaggeration, it was physics. Muslim armies during the Crusades relied heavily on horse archers and light cavalry. According to historical sources, Muslim soldiers wore mail hauberks and lighter armor compared to European knights. This was partly tactical, mobility mattered more than maximum protection, and partly practical. The Middle Eastern climate made heavy plate armor difficult to wear. From horseback at speed, a curved blade delivers powerful slashing attacks. The single edge concentrates all the sharpness on one side of the blade, allowing for a more acute sharpening angle. This creates excellent cutting performance against flesh. The lighter weight of curved swords typically similar to European swords, made them faster in the hand. The design also prevents a sword from getting stuck in an opponent's body. The curve helps the blade pull free as the horseman rides past. When these two sword cultures met during the Crusades, the results revealed the strengths and weaknesses of both approaches. At the Battle of Hattin on July 4th, 1187, Saladin's forces destroyed a Crusader army. The Crusaders numbered around 20,000 men. Saladin's army was approximately 25 to 30,000. The battle reveals everything about tactics and weapons. The Crusaders marched through scorching July heat wearing heavy armor. Saladin's forces cut them off from water sources. For 3 days, the Crusaders struggled toward the Sea of Galilee, constantly harassed by Muslim cavalry and archers. By July 4th, the Crusaders were exhausted, dehydrated near the horns of Hattin. Saladin's forces set fire to dry grass, adding smoke to heat and thirst. Muslim horse archers unleashed volleys of arrows while light cavalry prevented the Crusaders from reaching water. When Saladin's cavalry finally charged with their curved swords, they weren't fighting fresh knights in tight formation. They were cutting down men who could barely stand, who'd been without water for days in the desert heat. The curved blades worked perfectly in this situation. The Crusader infantry broke. Some fled up the slopes of the horns. The cavalry tried to break through but were surrounded. King Guy of Jerusalem was captured. Reynald of Châtillon was executed. The Templars and Hospitallers were slaughtered. Saladin had destroyed the fighting strength of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. But at the Battle of Arsuf on September 7th, 1191, Richard the Lionheart faced Saladin with a different strategy. Richard organized a defensive march down the coast from Acre to Jaffa. His army numbered around 10 to 20,000. Saladin had a similar sized force. For days, Saladin's cavalry harassed the Crusaders, trying to break their formation with arrows and quick attacks. Richard held his knights in check. He maintained tight formation. The infantry formed a protective wall. The cavalry stayed protected in the center. Ships supplied the army from the coast. On September 7th, near Arsuf, Saladin committed his full army. Muslim cavalry attacked the Crusader rear guard, the Hospitallers. The pressure became intense. The Hospitallers finally charged without orders. Richard, rather than let them be cut off, committed his full cavalry in a coordinated charge. The European knights in full armor, fresh and organized, crashed into Saladin's forces. The straight swords, the lances, the sheer weight of armored cavalry in formation proved devastating in close combat. Saladin's army broke. The Muslims suffered heavy casualties, possibly 7,000 killed compared to 700 Crusaders. Saladin's forces retreated. Same commanders, similar armies but opposite results. At Hattin, mobility and curved swords won. At Arsuf, discipline and straight swords won. The difference wasn't the weapons, it was a tactical situation. Each sword was optimized for different conditions. Let's be clear about what these battles actually prove. Curved blades dominated in mobile cavalry warfare against exhausted, disorganized, or lightly armored opponents. The draw cut from horseback at speed created devastating slashing wounds. The lighter armor worn by Muslim forces made mobility their advantage. Straight blades excelled in organized, close quarters combat between heavily armored opponents. The ability to thrust precisely into armor gaps combined with half-swording techniques made them perfect for European warfare. The heavy armor required different tactics. Neither sword could cut through mail armor. That's not how medieval combat worked. You either went around the armor with mobility, like Muslim cavalry, or you went through the gaps with precision thrusts, like European knights. Medieval warriors designed weapons for specific problems: climate, armor technology, fighting styles, cavalry tactics, all shape sword design. The straight blade and the curved blade represent two brilliant solutions to two different sets of battlefield challenges. By the 16th century, something interesting happened. Europeans started adopting curved cavalry sabers. Why? Because warfare changed. Firearms made plate armor obsolete. European cavalry became lighter and faster, and lighter cavalry fighting unarmored opponents discovered what Muslim warriors had known for centuries. Curved blades are devastating against soft targets. Next time you see a movie where a hero's sword cuts through armor like butter, remember this. Real medieval combat was about physics, geometry, and brutal practicality. Knights didn't win by having sharper swords. They won by understanding exactly what their weapon could and couldn't do. And that understanding was written in blood across 1,000 battlefields.